Well, welcome back. 2008 Hyundai Elantra. Just did time belt water pump on this. Needs rear brakes. Maintenance item, basically. We're going to go through and redo the rear brakes in this. You'll have an impact. You just put a little bit of counterclockwise pressure as you hit the end of the screwdriver. And usually back them right out. I'm going to break the slide bolts loose before we take the bracket off. It's easier when it's still attached. 14 millimeter. Screwdriver in here to pry this loose. I'll just set that right on the control arm back here for now. Doesn't hang. These pads they're just done, falling apart, just rust. All right, so pick you up here. So in behind here, see if you can see this. There you go, 14 millimeter. The bottom one, you can see the end of this control arm here. It's inside of here, so you have to undo this control arm. It's just 17 millimeter both sides, and then in here is the actual bottom bolt. Right, you can't see it, but my finger's on it to hold this caliper mounting bracket on. So we have to undo this control arm. I've got a jack stand underneath, right where the coil spring is, so it's actually resting on that. We're gonna zip this off and then undo these two bracket mounting bolts, take them off. Alright, looking down behind the rotor, you just barely see this, but that's the end of the control arm bolt, 17 millimeter. Just put a wrench on the inside nut here. I hope. Yep, line that up, hold that. Okay, so now if you pick this control arm up, I should be able to. Let me get a screwdriver, just pry it out of there. It's just kind of wedged in there. Just wedge it out of there. Pick it up a little bit. A little bit of grease. Okay, so you can see this is loose now. It's out of the way. I just needed to get in behind that. Alright, come in behind this top bolt here. Top mounting bracket bolt. I say this in some of my other videos. Flex head ratchet. If you don't have one and you're working on cars, get a flex head. Get a 1/2 inch, get a 3/8. You will use them to death. Well worth it. Get this lined up. Okay. Make sure I'm going loose and not tight. There we go. Let's see if I can break this loose now. Oh, it's a little tight. Just a little tight. Oh, should have heard that crack. That was not me. It was the actual bolt. Really tight. But it did break loose, so good. Now I should be able to get it done. That's what corrosion does. Okay. tight, but it came out. Now I should better just lift this off here now. Let me back you up here. You're so close you can't see anything. Alright, take that off. You can see there's a lot of pads. There's a lot of pad left, but you can already see the gap. It's forming between that pad and the backing plate. On the other side, which I already did, this is what I got out. Just came right off, just totally corroded. As soon as I tried to pull it apart, the pad just separated from the backing plate. So these are no good, and it's just because of corrosion. So we'll set this aside, we'll get the rotor off. We'll see how much fight we have to do that. Sometimes these hang up. These do have, and these are missing I gotta see if you can hear them. Doesn't even sound good. The adjuster hole. The adjuster for this is down the bottom. If you have a problem with it hanging up or not moving, you've got to stick a screwdriver in there, get on and I'll show you once I get this off, get on the star wheel, the adjuster wheel, and then you got to move it from bottom to top, so kind of like this, and that'll loosen it. I think this will come off, but we'll see. If it doesn't, then that's what we're gonna do. Yeah, it's fighting me, so let's see if I can find that wheel. Look in there. I know you can't see this, but it's hard for me to see too. Man, there it is. There it is. So it's right down the bottom, and we'll just reach in there with a screwdriver and see if we can loosen it some more. Like I said, I'll show it to you when I'm done. I believe it's got to be down to up. Yeah. I'm going to roll it towards the top. If I do it wrong, I'll know because it'll get tighter. Nope, I was right. There it goes. So, right down, and let me see if I can show you that. Move the camera here. I'm trying to shine that light up in there. So you can see that little star wheel right there. That's the adjuster. So what I was doing is reaching down and rotating that up. And you do it right through that hole, right through the front hole there. You reach right in there. That's why that hole is in the rotor, the face of that rotor. And then that basically moves your parking brake pads in. And that allows you to pull the rotor off easily. So you can see that rotor has got some corrosion in that. This outer lip a lot of times will get corroded because the pad doesn't come all the way out to the edge, and then it hangs up on you. It won't want to come off, so you move those pads in by adjusting that wheel. So just a little thing you need to do sometimes. Alright, so we've got a part. We're going to spray it down, of course, with spray clean, chemical of 1,001 uses. We will clean the face of this hub as well. Light back in here for you. You want to make sure this is clean, particularly around this hub, where the centerpiece, this flange, because that's where it tends to hang up if it's going to hang up. High temp grease, just a real thin coating. Has to be high temp grease. This can't be regular grease, it'll just melt out. Especially around this hub and around the center flange of this hub. That's generally where they hang up. This flange wasn't bad. Now, so I've got the new rotor here. I've cleaned it. They come with a coating on them so they don't rust. Make sure, I'll get my light here so you can see this actually. That went well. So make sure there's 2 screw holes for the bolts, the screws that came off. Make sure you line them up when you put it on, so you can attach it. Slide it back on there. I'm going to clean that again. Some more brake clean, just to be sure. Okay, and while we're here, we want to clean this, right? So we're going to have to push this piston back in before we put the new pads. But any metal that touches the backing plate of the pads, we want to clean. So we're going to come in here, we're going to clean these tabs off and clean the face of this piston. It's a metal piston. Piston? No, piston. It's a metal piston. So you just want to clean it up, get the corrosion off of there. Clean that off really good. Just set that back there for a little bit here. Time being, we have to grease that as well, but we'll do that when we come back. Like I said, I probably should have done this before I put the rotor on. We'll reach in here before we start. Push it in some until we get it too much, and then we won't be able to put the rotor back on, and then we'll back it off and get it close. Put the rotor back together. Make sure you get your screw holes lined up. See, now I can't put it on there because I've pushed them out far enough that I can't get it back on there. That's kind of where I want it to be. Now I just back it off some until I get it close. There, now should be pretty close. Let me get my mark again. Make sure I'm on it. Find it. Right there. I believe it's right there. A little tough to see sometimes. Top to bottom to tighten. Make sure the rotor's on all the way. So now it's hung. It's real close. I can't pull it off now. It's on the parking brake pad. So I'm just going to back that off just a little bit. That's about what I want. Okay, we're going to go over to the bench and clean the mounting bracket up for the pads. This guy right here. Really rusty. Very important to clean them. So you can see these don't want to move at all. They should be sliding freely in there, and they just don't want to move. So we're going to pry them out of there. Clean that up. There's one. So I don't know if you can see this or not. I'll try to show it to you. They're starting to separate already right in here. You can see it's separating from that backing plate. It's called rust jacking. Rust gets in behind here and starts pushing the pad. These really bad. They're just tugging that. That's what happened with the other one. I need to tap on the other side. Right there. Just came separated. You see how much corrosion's in there. See if you can see it. Get you a side angle of that. But that's how bad they are. There's nothing good about that. So hardware, we'll pull the hardware off of here. Pull the slides out. Make sure we clean them and re-grease them. Check your boots when you're doing this. Make sure they're okay. There's a little bit of corrosion you can see right up in here, right around the top. We're going to wire wheel that and get that corrosion out of that, because that's where it seals. So we'll actually wire wheel the top of that, clean them up. These pins are both the same, top and bottom, so you can interchange them, it doesn't matter. And we're going to go take this to the wire wheel. Actually, before we do that, we're going to file. Wire wheel won't take corrosion off. If it's bad, it just really polishes it. So we're going to actually find the file here. We're going to come in here with a file, and actually we don't want to file the metal, we just want to file the corrosion off of it. I'm going to come in here. Okay, so got this nice and clean in here. It has to be clean. You got to clean these. Corrosion is your enemy. Just remember that. Spray them down. What you're trying to do here is just keep corrosion from getting back in there. So I'm going to take some brake grease. Where is it? Tile. I'm going to use for metal to metal contact. We're going to coat behind where the hardware goes. Always replace the hardware. It's only a couple dollars, and good pads usually come with it anyway. Take some brake grease. This is Permatex Permatex Ceramic Extreme. I use this for metal to metal. I have another Permatex which I'll show you, which I use for anything, slide pins basically. I'm going to grease in behind where that hardware goes. Keep the corrosion from getting in there. You don't need a ton, but you do have to coat it. This stuff will outlast the pad as far as staying in there and not going away and keeping water from getting in there. That's all we're trying to do, is keep the water out, keep it from corroding. Making a mess here a little bit. Okay. Check your boots while you're in here. Make sure they're not cracked or dry rotted. If they are, get a kit and replace them. Get the boot kit. These are fine. They look good. Alright, let me get the hardware for this. Hardware and pads. Like this. Okay. I didn't say it before, and I'm sure I did. Always replace the hardware. Always. New hardware every time. Don't mess around with it. It's cheap. It's what makes them work well. It's what they slide on. So now we're going to come in here with the pins. Once I figure out what I did with them, I moved them. They're down here. My pin's out here. Come here. All right. I'm gonna go wire wheel these real quick around the top of the head. This one's actually fine. This one's got corrosion, so I'm gonna go. This one has none. This one has some, so I'm gonna clean that. All right, we got the Ultra Disc Brake Caliper Lube. Permatex yet again, so we're gonna. You don't want a lot. You just got a thin coating on this. You put too much, you kind of get a hydraulic action, and they can lock up on you. So thin coating of this. Sil Glide's fine. You can use Sil Glide in here. And push them back into the boot. Make sure they grab the boot. They should move freely. Same thing here. Okay. Good, captured the boot. Now let's see if our pads are going to fit here. Hopefully they will. This is my inbound side. There is a indicator in this particular set of pads. That goes on the inside pad. So, Just remember that. Inside pad. Just sit them in there. They should move easily, and this one does. So easily I fell right back out of there. Okay. Outside. I had a lot of problems with the other side, simply because of the corrosion. I had to go back and actually hit the corrosion some more, and they were the pads were binding up. And you can see I showed when I took these old pads out that they wouldn't move at all. They were totally bound up in there. So you do want to make sure that these should move freely when they're in there, and they do. So you see how easy that's moving back and forth? Just no problem. That's what you want. Alright, we'll just start reassembling things now. I'm going to remount our caliper mounting bracket. 2 bolts. I know you can't see this, but there's not really much to see. Just going to slide this in place and reattach the 2 bolts from the back here. Actually, I want to put a little bit of thread locker on these. A little bit of blue thread locker on these. Okay. Now we got to grease the face of the caliper. Face of the caliper. You got to put the piston on the caliper and the tabs that ride along the metal backing plate of the pads. I'm going to grease them as well. It's all about corrosion control, or at least slowing it down. I forgot something. Got to push that piston back in before I do that. I'll just take an old pad. You can do this with a pair of channel locks, C-clamp. I have a little tool. Stick an old pad in there. Just turn it back in. It should go in easy. Right? It shouldn't be binding up on you. If it is, you got to check your caliper or your hose. We'll just push that back in. You'll feel it bottom out. And just take it. No big deal. Check your boot. Boot's okay. Now we'll grease it. Now we'll come in here and grease the face of this. Grease the tabs. The other side rides on. Don't twist your line. Don't twist your line. Make sure your line's not twisted up when you put it back on. This should slide right back in place now. Push the piston in. Sometimes I amaze myself at what I'm doing. We'll set that out of the way. We gotta rehook this control arm up. Might help. Might help if we actually hook the control arm up. Wouldn't ride too well without it. You're gonna have to probably tap that back in with a hammer. It's tight, so you just line it up. I hope. Yep. Weasel it in. Once you get that bolt started, you can tap that bolt. There it goes. And it'll line it up for you. Tap it all the way in. Put the nut on it. And we're going to tighten it up. Now I've got a stand underneath this coil spring, so the suspension is actually compressed at ride height. You don't want to tighten this control arm if it's hanging. You want to put either a floor jack or a stand underneath it. Make sure it's compressed and at ride height before you tighten this control arm up, bushing up, or the bolt for the control arm. Has to be loaded basically to do that. Otherwise it can destroy the bushing, torques it up and causes problems you don't want. Alright, just hold that set. Okay, 17 millimeter. tension on your slides. There you go. Don't crush these. These are, you know, they're not very big bolts. Just snug them up. Don't need to kill them. And always start them by hand. Always. Nope. Come on. There it goes. Good. It slides easy. That's good. That's pretty much it. I have to see if I can get the old rotors didn't have the rubber plug. There should be a rubber plug in here to keep the moisture and dirt and everything out of here. I got to see if I can get a pair for this, both sides of this, and we'll do that. Before you drive it, pump the brakes up till the pedal gets hard, or you're going to have a little bit of a scary moment. That's it. Pretty simple job, actually. I say that's it. That's not it. I almost forgot. I put my screws back in. So maintenance, not really a repair. It needed to be done, but it's really just maintenance. And I said, I think this car sat for a little bit. Just a couple things I've done to it and seen it. Definitely looks like it's been sitting, and that's what caused the problem with this. It's just corroded. Do the things, the small things, you know, putting grease around this center of this hub, and new hardware, grease behind the hardware, keep the moisture out of there. You know, pull your slide pins, re-grease them. All those little things that don't take a lot of time, but make all the difference in the world. You want your brakes to work correctly. Just a real simple maintenance item. If you have to do this, I hope it helps you out. If you like the video, subscribe below. Thanks for watching.